Welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I'm Jacob Milham, joined by Jeremy Greco, and Greg Walker is joining us this Sunday evening. Greg, how are we doing this weekend?
Not too bad, man. Just on the tail end of another weekend here. I have a one-day work week coming up here. It's going to be brilliant.
Hell yeah. I'm jealous. Jeremy, I mean, what? You just took a long time away from work, didn't you?
I took about a week off over the holiday. That was nice. And then I had to go back to work, and it was less nice.
Yeah, much less nice. Well, don't worry. CrowdStrike had you covered for a little bit of Friday off. All right, but hey, we are here to talk about the Kansas City Royals, just doing great things heading out of the All-Star break. We are going to talk with Greg about the Royals draft, who he likes, who he doesn't like, and the process, everything in between. But you could have already read about this if you would go check out Royals Review. Greg did a pick-by-pick analysis of all 20 guys Kansas City selected.
Tradition now, right?
I know, right? How many years have you done this?
Just since 2022, so this is the third time now, and it's not super easy to put together that piece because as we get further into day 2 and then day 3, a lot of these guys weren't ranked by like any public outlets, and so I can't just go find a scouting report. I have to try to dig through film, which is easier for some guys than for others, especially the smaller school college guys. Like I cannot find anything on them.
All right. But yeah, so really looking forward to talking to Greg about that. But yeah, go check it out on royalsreview.com for his pick-by-pick analysis. That will be down in the podcast description below. But first, I do want to talk about the Chicago White Sox series. I think we got to talk about this before we get too deep into the draft. Guys, did we watch all 3 games? Because I did, and I was feeling.
Sure did. Well, I didn't watch the first half of Friday night's game. I was busy with other things. I watched the rest of it.
What about you, Greg?
I watched parts of all 3, and they looked like what a good team should look like against the Chicago White Sox in 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
That was exactly my takeaway on Twitter was that, yeah, they swept them, but they didn't just sweep them. They came out of the All-Star break looking 100% locked in and ready to compete.
17-3 cumulative score over that series. Like 1 run allowed in each game. I mean, that's just a dominant effort against a White Sox team that sucks. And I wish we get to see them after the trade deadline because my goodness, that team is going to be bad after that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like their trade bait did okay against the Royals, but you could definitely see how bad that team can look once those guys go away. It's going to be kind of ugly.
And the Royals are already 0 games back of a wild card spot again.
Exactly.
They're a half game ahead because the Red Sox haven't played yet today.
Right. So if the Red Sox lose tonight, then Kansas City goes to bed tonight in the wild card spot, that 3rd and final spot. And I think as we talk right now, they are like 5.5 games back behind the Guardians in the AL Central. So
something like that.
Don't look away now, but maybe they are actually still in the divisional race. Everyone listening to this is going to say, "Oh well, these are the White Sox. This is what you should do." They're 27-74 for goodness sakes. They are a historically bad team. This is the 5th time this season they have been swept. Okay, this is common occurrence for the Chicago White Sox. But still, at the end of the day, the Royals handled their end of the business. They didn't beat themselves against the White Sox. When the White Sox were showing signs of life, they snuffed it out really quickly. So just the Royals handled business in front of some packed crowds there at Kauffman Stadium. Well-attended games this weekend, so really enjoyed that. Greg, do you have any like overarching takeaways from the series? Any notes that stand out to you?
Here's a fun note. Seth Lugo went CG today, throwing all 9 innings, 1 run allowed. Do you know the last time that a Royals pitcher not named Jordan Lyles went CG in a 9-inning game?
Oh,
it was 2020, right? It
was Brad Keller in 2020. Yeah, September
it was the last time they had a complete game win. Jordan Lyles had 4 complete games. They were all losses.
Brady Singer had a CG in 2021, but it was part of a 7-inning doubleheader, so barely counts.
Yeah, and Cole Reagans had the 5-inning complete game.
Yeah, it does not count.
Against the Blue Jays earlier this year. By the way, I did just look. The Royals are currently 5 games behind the Guardians for first place, as the Guardians have also lost today.
Hell yeah.
And the Twins lost today. So the Royals are 0 games behind second place in the division, 0 games behind the second wild card spot.
Holy smokes. That's very, very surprising. But yeah, they're 55 and 45, 10 games above 500. The MLB X account put out a note that is going to make everyone very, very happy about where the Royals sit. The Royals have won 55 of their first 100 games for the third time in the last 40 years. The other 2 times they did that were in 1985 and 2015.
Ooh. I feel like those years, there's some kind of hidden meaning. Like those are 30 years apart. That's very interesting, right?
I wasn't expecting this again until like 2045. Okay, I think like that's the pattern we have, but we should have stuck with that. So shame on you, JJ Piccolo and the Royals. God, stop winning so many games.
One more note about their division standings.
Yes.
The Royals have won 3 in a row. Twins have lost 3 in a row. The Guardians have lost 2 in a row. The Royals are 7-3 in their last 10, despite losing that series against the Red Sox. And the Guardians are 3-7 in their last 10. Mm-hmm. They are spiraling. Yeah, by the way, the Yankees also. Sorry, go ahead.
Just beat them this weekend. Yeah, big series for them.
Yeah, the Yankees are 4-6 in their last 10. And I just retweeted a thing. Let me see if I can find it real quick. The Yankees began their season 49-21, very, very hot, right? They're 14-23 cents. So, the Yankees aren't invulnerable either. If you think, the division maybe isn't in play, or, the Royals were bad this year, blah, blah, blah. They had that struggle. They can still catch everybody.
Yeah, they're still within striking range. And I think that is what is going to make the trade deadline very, very interesting when it comes down to the wire.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry, Jacob. I'm just so excited right now. The team looks so good.
Yeah.
And Adam Frazier in the leadoff spot looks so bad. Please, JJ Piccolo, look at this team. Look at what they're doing. Reward them. Bring in someone else to hit instead of Adam Frazier. I'm begging you. Also, Hunter Renfroe should be leading off. This is no longer a dark horse pick. He is batting over 300. He is taking walks. He's had a free pass in each of the last 3 games after the All-Star break. And somebody told me when I said it on Twitter, they said, the Royals shouldn't do that because they don't want somebody that slow ahead of Bobby Witt Jr. Guess what? Hunter Renfroe's sprint speed faster than Adam Frazier's. Okay? They can lead off.
Preach.
Hunter Renfroe should be leading off until they get somebody else from a trade. Make it happen.
That'd be quite interesting. That really would be. But speaking of Bobby Witt Jr., he was the other MVP of this series. Holy smokes. He has the most multi-hit games now in the majors. 42 multi-hit games. And this was his 5th consecutive multi-hit game at Kauffman Stadium, dating back to July 3rd. He now has 3 consecutive 3-hit games. Okay, he only trails. Go ahead.
Move aside 2-hit Witt. It's 3-hit Witt.
Yeah, I really want someone to start reclaiming that nickname for Bobby Witt Jr. because I think he deserves a little bit more. Greg, I mean, what do we just call him 2-hit Witt or 3-hit Witt now? Do we just keep that going?
Go for it. I'm just going to keep calling him Bobby Witt and stick with that because it's more than just 2 singles in a game like Whit Merrifield was. I mean, this is a complete ball player we're talking about. Like coming into today. In the month of July, Bobby Witt Jr. slashing 471, 482, 843. And then he went 3 for 4 today. So that's only going to go up.
I do have one question for the two of you.
Okay.
Bobby Witt Jr. Two stolen base attempts the entire month of July. Caught both times.
Washed.
Concerning?
Yeah, he's washed.
Absolutely washed. Speed isn't there. It was all a mirage. He's not an all-star. Jarren Duran is the MVP, obviously, as Boston Red Sox fans are trying to put out there. No. All right, listen, he's gotten a little unlucky on the stolen base attempts. I do wonder if having Vinny behind him has made him a little too conservative on
and he's
stealing
been
bases.
he's been getting caught stealing a bunch since late last year. And I think maybe he's just decided to be less aggressive. I don't want him to be less aggressive, though. I want him to work with somebody, the base running coach or an outside organization, whoever he needs to work on his stolen base skills, because he's the fastest guy in baseball. He should be able to steal bases. Ellie De La Cruz steals bases left and right. Go talk to Ellie, Bobby. Figure out what he's doing, and then also steal bases, because you can.
Ellie De La Cruz, 47 stolen bases so far in the season. I think he has like a 17 stolen base lead over the second place person.
Yeah, he's stolen more bases already this season than I think we've seen anybody steal in like the last 10 years or something stupid. Didn't Whit Merrifield had like 45 one year, and that led the league, and that was really good. And Acuna De La Cruz is like 40-70, Mr. Acuna. Let me show you 80 stolen bases. Let me show you 90 stolen bases.
Yeah, I don't even know what he's on pace for. But Greg, I mean, what do you think, man? Is this just Bobby being more conservative, or is this something to be worried about?
I mean, I assume the fact that he's just not going at all is just him being cautious, because as Jeremy mentioned, he has been getting caught stealing quite often. I mean, the efficiency matters, and eventually you get to a point where if you're getting caught as much as he was, you really should just put the brakes on. And so I don't know if he just lost his ability to read pitchers or what, but yeah, that's definitely something to monitor. I hope he can figure it out.
Yeah, same here. Hopefully so. But hey, 3-0 after the All-Star break, coming out really, really strong. As we're recording this, we are 9 days away from the trade deadline, so we'll be closely monitoring things over at RoyalsReview.com. Also, make sure to check out the rumblings every single morning. I'm sure if there's any trade rumors or trade nuggets that you need to be aware of, they will be in the Royals rumblings only on RoyalsReview.com. Now, Greg, let's go ahead and get to the MLB draft. So we are almost a week removed from the draft, but like you said, a lot of work goes into post-draft. Okay, really getting a grasp on who the Royals did or didn't get, and I already know guys are starting to pivot to 2025. All right, there's still a lot of collegiate ball going on this summer. You got to start looking towards 2025. But Greg, give us 1,000-foot view. What are your feelings on the draft class?
I mean, the second and third rounds, they basically just got a bunch of org guys, which is how the second and third rounds tend to go. They really didn't take a whole lot of swings late in the draft on like prep guys that have high bonus demands or anything like that, which they've done something like that in the past. Remember a couple of years ago, they took Austin Charles really late in the draft, and he was a much better prospect, that indicated. They only had really one guy like that this year. Corey Cousin from a Louisiana high school in the 18th round. And if there's one guy that they took that I don't think is going to sign, it's going to be him, because he's a really toolsy prep outfielder. We'll see. Beyond that, it was a lot of college pitching, and the Royals clearly did their work in scouting summer ball, because they took a couple of guys in the late rounds that had been just absolutely dominating in the MLB Draft League this summer, coming off of pretty disappointing college seasons. That was Zach Collier out of TCU and Andrew Moronis from Cal State Fullerton. Both of them pretty good stuff. Again, didn't pitch all that well in college this year, but have been dominant in summer ball. So the Royals are clearly doing their work out there. Also, at the top of the draft, I'm a little bit surprised they actually got Jalen, because I never really saw anything linking the Royals to Caglione in the lead up to the draft. But I think a lot of that has to do with most mock drafts had him going in the top 5. Like, he usually wasn't even on the board by the time the Royals picked. So it was basically, in my mind, by the time we got to the 6th pick here, it was between him and JJ Weatherholt, and they went with Caglione. I'm not like too upset about that or anything. I don't know if the Royals are the best or to get the most out of him, because he swings at everything and his main weakness. And the Royals tend to do a lot of that themselves. That they do. So Jeremy, we discussed Caglione a little bit last week, but listening to JJ Piccolo talk on the pregame show today, he made it explicitly clear that they have this, we drafted him for the bat, but we know he can pitch. So very non-committal to actually giving him a true shot as a two-way player. I'm not overly upset by that, especially since there are like just immediate control issues with Caglione. I get it. He's got a great fastball, but why don't we take that fastball out to right field? Okay. Take that arm power out there and a transition to the outfield. Jeremy, would you be heartbroken
if they just made him an outfielder for the time being?
As much as I spent last year going, Blake Mitchell pitches, can we make him a two-way player? And I would love to have a two-way player on the Royals just because, like, that's just so cool. If my choices right now are, two-way player who's a reliever and a decent first baseman or an elite right fielder, I would rather have the elite right fielder. Everybody's talked about, including Greg, including you, including me, the swinging at everything is a concern. And the more time he spends refining his pitching ability, the less time he can spend refining his batting eye. And so if we want the Aaron Judge or the Bryce Harper comps that we were getting on draft day, then he's got to get a better batting eye. So, let's focus there, I guess.
Greg, do you concur?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's basically doing your due diligence of he has so much track record of pitching. He has such good stuff. I mean, it's up to like 99 from the left side. So I understand not wanting to immediately just throw that away. But I envision it being he goes out and throws a few innings in the complex and just sees what happens. I don't think there's a future for him on the mound because, as we've alluded to already, it's 20 grade commands. I mean, he was losing velo throughout the season. Like in his last start of the year, he was hitting 90 with his fastball. And so something to keep in mind. He's already John, and I hate the delivery. Like, I think his delivery has a lot of cleaning up that would need to be done, and that would just to take away from the development he needs to do offensively and defensively too if they're going to transition to the outfield, because he's been first base only in college.
Yeah, that he has. And I say outfield with the expectation of let's set Caglione to get up to the majors as soon as possible. If the bat is really hot and comes along nicely, then I don't want him to be in a logjam behind, Salvi needs to play first to help out his knees. Vinny Pasquantino is still there, still producing. Go ahead.
So is he still producing?
Yes, he is. He is. He's, man, it's, yeah. I don't know.
But the sack flies, baby. The sack flies.
His walk rate has gone down every year.
Guys, I'm good with him right now. I'm still good with Vinny. He's fine.
I'm being blissfully ignorant on the fact that he's struggling overall statistically, if you will. But back to Cags. It's also important to note that the Royals farm system doesn't have any top tier or even mid-tier first base talent. So if they wanted to keep him there, I don't think it would be the worst decision. I don't think it would be awful, but just having two left-handed slugging first basemen it's kind of a roster logjam once you get up to that level, but it's always hard to project that. I'm still very happy with Cags being in the Royals organization. Greg, who are some other guys that Royals fans should be keeping an eye on? Anyone exciting, you think?
Well, David Shields drew a lot of consternation from some people. He was picked 41st, so he was the Royals' second-round pick. They originally, as we know, had that 39th overall pick, rated it for Hunter Harvey. That pick ended up being Caleb Lomavita, who I don't really like that much, and so I'm not losing sleep over trading away that draft pick. But David Shields is actually really interesting to me as far as prep pitchers go. I'm kind of on board because he's actually really a command stuff sort of guy, and most teams, I don't know about the Royals, but most teams have shown an ability to help guys get velo and kind of unlock more stuff, versus it seems like command is a little bit harder to develop. And so taking a guy that has like a clean delivery, good on-mound athleticism, and throws a lot of strikes and hoping that you can get more stuff out of him is kind of an interesting approach. And so I understand the risks inherent in taking prep arms, but as far as prep pitchers go, I think David Shields is a pretty good one. And if that's too risky, they followed that pick up with Drew Beam, who is like a high floor, low ceiling college starter from Tennessee. So if you're mad, they're going to take a high risk guy like that, and they immediately take a low risk guy right after that. So they're balancing it out. Honestly, like I didn't think they really went out on that many limbs in this draft. I thought it was overall a pretty conservative class.
Okay. Jeremy and I did have the chance to speak with Kyle DeGroat ahead of the weekend, the Royals' 14th round pick. He announced that he is, he's decommitting from Texas, if you will, and going with the Royals in the draft. I know the signability concerns there were part of the reason why he fell down the draft board. Greg, what are your thoughts on the guy from New York?
DeGroat's pretty interesting. Watched some video from him. I like his delivery coming out of the Northeast. He's not the biggest guy, but because of his delivery and his size, his fastball angle plays pretty well. And that's something that a lot teams have been looking at a lot more in recent years when it comes to evaluating pitching. I don't know if I posted that as a whole because they still took a lot of like kind of higher slot guys throwing downhill. But anyway, he's got a pretty flat angle fastball up to 97, 2 separate breaking balls, good athlete. There's development here because like the secondary stuff isn't that good. And when you're drafting a prep arm, there's always going to be strike throwing issues. But there's definitely some interesting things to work with. I think that's a fun guy.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have any other draft related questions for Greg?
Will Kyle DeGroat become the GOAT?
Yes, he is going to win 16 Cy Young Awards and go to the Hall of Fame.
Let's go.
And how do you feel about nicknaming Caglianone's homers? We're going to call him Jack Jacks. How do you feel about that?
Power to you. I don't like nicknaming any home runs.
You're no fun, Greg.
When he's been in college, Caglianone's nickname had.
So we're gonna make an outfield, right field, obviously near the foul pole section called Cag's Corner, and then he's gonna hit Jack Jacks there.
Okay, I'm satisfied with Cag's Corner. I can be on board with that. The only thing that bothers me about Caglione is his name is not like Jackson or anything that it makes sense for it to be Jack. His name is Jeffrey Allen Caglione.
I mean, you get people got Dick from Richard. They got Jack from John. You get Bob from Robert. These names come from everywhere.
They really do. And I'm sorry.
Bill from William.
But Jeffrey does not really roll off the tongue or strike fear into the opposing team.
No, yeah, Jack is way better than Jeff Caglione. Jack Caglione strikes. That's hits. Like you get that plosive. You're like, boom, Jack.
Well, here we are, just grading out names. I guess
the wrong word there, but I was close. Whatever.
Yes, close enough. All right, Greg. Last draft related question: A through F. What do you grade the class as a whole after looking at it overall?
Incomplete. I can right after it happens because I can evaluate these things as best as I want, but I'm not going to act like I have any clue what's going to happen with any of these guys. So I think they did generally fine. Like I think they got a good collector of different players that offer something, and they obviously organizationally trust their pitching development, and so we'll see. I don't know if I trust it because I've followed along with Frank Mazzucato over the last 3 years, and he has not developed at all over the last 3 years. And so we'll see if they can actually get more stuff out of David Shields or if they can help Kyle DeGroat develop his breaking balls, because I don't know if those can happen, but they still got some more polished, probably.
Okay, so when they drafted Caglione, I was actually pretty disappointed because I really wanted JJ Weatherholt when he fell that far. You said you were fine with it, but would you have drafted Caglione in that spot, or would you have drafted Weatherholt if you were making the call?
I would have drafted Weatherholt because he plays up the middle and he has a better hit tool. And I think the main reason he fell down drafts was because of injuries, which I get it. He's been injured both of the last 2 seasons in college. And so there's concerns about if he can actually hold up. He's not the biggest or most physical guy, but the batted ball data was excellent. Like it was right up there with Bazzana and Condon at the top of the class. And so I really like what he can offer offensively. And again, he plays up the middle versus Caglione is a corner guy with hit tool questions. And so I would have taken Weatherholt, but as I've actually dug more into Caglione, I like the pick better. Like, I still don't trust the Royals to actually help him fix his approach in terms of which organization would I send him to get him to stop swinging at everything. But if he could just lay off of breaking balls out of the zone, then his ceiling offensively is as high as anybody in this draft class. And so from that,
I get especially concerned when I remember that when they didn't take Weatherholt, the Cardinals immediately drafted him. And that feels like, they just drafted a Hall of Fame second baseman. Congratulations to the St. Louis Cardinals. Just because the way things always seem to happen in St. Louis. But, if Cags and Bobby can dominate the home run derby for years to come, I don't think any of us will complain too much.
Let's not act like St. Louis's player dev is still that elite. I mean, look at the players they've had debut over the last 3 years and how have they done? Jordan.
Yeah. Not Victor Scott too. You remember him? Victor Scott was supposed to be like the next big thing, wasn't he? And
I mean, Victor Scott's like an 80 grade runner without much else in my eyes, anyway.
What about Lars Nootbaar though?
Lars Nootbaar's fine. Like, he's a good
just
player.
Fine. I thought he was good.
He's not a star. You know who was supposed to be?
That's another one.
Either, did it?
Nope.
And then look at Tyler O'Neill. He gets away from St. Louis and he's an all-star with the Red Sox. So it's amazing how that goes. Also, one last draft note I do want to ask. So I felt like in comparison to other baseball draft classes, this was an extremely shallow draft class. Like you had like your top 12 prospects. Then after that, it kind of fell off a cliff. That's how I feel as a casual draft knower, watcher, whatever the hell.
When we had him on a couple weeks ago too, isn't that what you said, Greg?
I believe I said it's the worst draft class since at least 2016. Like it's not. Yeah. There's good players at the top, like that top 8 of college players and the 2 top prep guys of Connor Griffin and Bryce Rayner. That's a solid top 10. It just falls off really fast. Like by the time we got into this.
So the point I was getting to was I wanted to ask Greg, like, how much do you think NIL is playing into this? Do you think NIL it is at all?
It's definitely part of it because guys can actually get some sort of financial stability going to school rather than feeling some sort of pressure to sign with a pro team for maybe an underslot amount. I think it's less that though, and more just general risk aversion. Like this year actually had the fewest high school players drafted in the top 20 rounds of any draft in history because I think teams are just more risk averse. Like they don't want to deal with the long developmental runways of taking prep guys, especially pitchers. And so more of them end up matriculating to college where teams are more than happy to outsource those first 3 years of player dev to an SEC program as opposed to doing it themselves. So there's a lot of
Kansas City properly using the word matriculate. That is astonishing, Greg. That is Hall of Fame material right
I do
there.
The good words. I have the good words.
Actually, here's something about somebody said that Paul Skeens, I do not remember who this was, unfortunately. Somebody on Twitter, I believe, said that Paul Skeens, going from first overall draft pick to all-star, starting the all-star game in under a year is proof that college pitching development is better than ever, and that MLB teams would be well served to let colleges take on that expense and effort rather than doing it themselves. That seems to kind of go with what you're saying, right, Greg?
Yeah, and also those first few years of college are going to filter out some guys whose elbow might go kablooey in those few years, or maybe have character issues they'll get exposed, or whatever it happens to be. And so, yeah, teams are it's a lot safer. Just be like, hey, let them go to college anyway, develop for a couple of years at Wake Forest or wherever, and then take them with a 3rd round pick 3 years later, rather than taking them first round now. Just because we just see so many times prep pitchers blowing out, prep pitchers completely stuck in low A, or those same top prospects going to college and blowing out or stalling or whatever. Like a couple of years ago, the top prep pitcher in the draft class was Andrew Dukanich. He ended up pulling his name out of the draft, went to Vanderbilt. In 2 years at Vanderbilt, he has barely pitched because he's always been hurt. And now he's a draft eligible sophomore and went in like the 7th round. Now I have no idea if he's going to sign or just go back to school, but so much can happen in those few years when a guy is 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about this, just go over to Google and search up Wake Forest Pitching Lab, and you will get a better understanding of how great collegiate pitching development truly is right now.
And just the one last point I want to make, you brought up the NIL, Jacob. It makes me very happy that if MLB teams are going to go this route, which is the smart route to go, so I can't criticize them for it, then I'm glad that players can get something now that they're kind of being forced to go to college rather than getting drafted out of high school. They can still get some money for, their talents.
Well, and I also think it's going to be more interesting that, like, okay, let's say the Royals, for example, because I think they did this year. They went with a overall higher floor draft class, lower ceiling, but they did the opposite when it came to their international free agents. They signed some of the premier international guys, went with the higher ceiling, and tried to add the high upside players that way rather than doing so during the draft, where things are more. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought there, but you know what I'm saying, right, Greg? Right?
Yeah, I mean, this draft class,
a lot of guys that they can run through
right now.
I mean, everybody can.
Listen, I had a tweet queued up for the Royals should not let Tommy Pham and John Brebbia leave Kauffman Stadium today as Chicago White Sox players, and then Brebbia went and shit the bed in the bottom of the 8th inning. I pulled that down really, really quick on Twitter. All All right. Hey, Greg, thank you for the breakdown of the Royals draft class. Make sure to go check that out on royalsreview.com if you want to read the full write-up and get a better feeling on all 20 Royals picks. Some other MLB news today: Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, and Jim Leland were officially inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, had their faces added to the hallowed halls of Cooperstown. I spoke about Mauer because I didn't like him as a kid. I despised him. I thought that he was the reason the Royals sucked, and it was actually the Royals' fault all along. That is my red flag. That is my red flag. I did not like Joe Mauer. I have since matured and realized how great of a ball player he is. Guys, any other Royals-related stuff to talk about before we get out of here?
Who are they going to trade for?
You need a bat. No more Adam Frazier leadoff experience.
Yeah,
Please.
So it's been rough. It really has been. One, I'm glad that they moved on. It seems like they've moved on from the Michael Garcia at third base.
Yeah,
I think they're done.
At second base. He's back.
At second base. Moved him back over to third. Thank you. But if you go over to Annie Rogers' newsletter, she detailed the Hunter Harvey trade, which I get it. Harvey had a terrible debut with the Royals.
Do not read too much into that.
No, I'm not reading too much into it.
You people, when listening, I know you wouldn't do that to me, Jacob.
I would never read too much into one appearance from a pitcher in his debut with the team.
Never.
But she did also detail, okay, this is what the Royals did. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're looking to do. She doubled down again, still said that they are still looking for more bullpen help and a bat in the outfield or at third base, or, quote, a versatile player who can do both. Those are the focuses for the team right now. Also prioritizing guys who are under control beyond 2024. So Tommy
she specifically said third base?
Yes. In the outfield or at third base. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I have
very interesting to me.
Yeah. I thought maybe they were trying to cook something up when they moved Michael over to second base. Maybe they thought they had honed in on a third base target.
It sounds like that's exactly what that was, and that Michael could easily go back to second if they end up finding out that the third baseman is the position that they want to go for. So, and honestly, I know a lot of people weren't excited. I thought Michael looked plenty good at second. He had a tremendous defensive play at third base, but I think he was good at second too. So I don't mind if they move him to second kind of full time, and Massey becomes kind of a DH to protect his back. What do you think, Greg?
I could give a damn about where he plays in the field. I just want Garcia to actually start hitting at some point, because I remain so disappointed with how he's been this year.
He's got 4 hits and a walk or 2 since the All-Star break.
Good for him.
He loves batting lower in the order. Every game he's batted in the 8th spot, he's started batting in the 8th spot, he has at least 1 hit. And then he started in the 7th spot today, and he got another hit. Lower in the order, Michael Garcia is good.
Yeah, he is. He really, really is. Also, Jeremy, here's another fun idea to think about. When, how to think word this, when they started moving Michael back to third ahead of the All-Star break, that lined up with Luis Rengifo heading to the IL. So I wonder if the Royals were trying to make a push for Rengifo, and we're trying to find a fit for Michael Garcia until they could hammer out details. Just food for thought. Maybe it's, coincidence, correlation, however you want to look at it. I think we could all agree they need a leadoff first bat. Like, I don't think they need a power bat.
You could get a power bat and move Renfroe to lead off, and that would be okay.
I think they just need a good hitter. Like,
overall.
Right now,
I don't know why, because
I would love to have him. Him today.
Look, first couple of months of the season, I understand he didn't get off to the best start, but he's turned things around. In the past month, he's gotten his line up to above league average after it was but for the first 2 months of the year, and also 0.8%.
Okay, all right. Maybe Greg's onto something there.
Or if you want a third baseman, dial up Tampa Bay, ask for Isak Paredes. I think they will ask for too much, and he's playing way over his head.
Listen, if we're going off expected stats and Baseball Savant pages, go look up Seth Lugos. All right, it is blue. It is bluer than Glacier Gatorade. Okay, looks bad, but hell, that man just might win the AL Cy Young for some reason. I do like going out and getting Isak because, coming from the Tigers. What'd you say?
Rosarena really has turned it around. I did not realize.
Really?
Give the man some credit. Also, big game here. When I'm playing a playoff game, if there's one guy I want my lineup, it's Randy Rosarena.
He's got a 151 WRC plus over his last 20 games.
Wow.
He had 2 home runs last night against the Yankees.
Are we worried at all about the salary? Do you think?
No, he's 8.1 million this year. Yeah, he's still an ARB.
Oh, wait, is he? He should be an ARB 1, right?
He's ARB 1 next year, I believe.
Yeah, he has 2 years of team control after this year.
Man, that's pretty sexy if you ask me. I do like that idea.
Sexy,
okay. Talking about that. All right, guys. But yeah, we'll have more time for trade talk. We got 2 more episodes before the trade deadline, and hopefully we'll be talking about some moves the Royals did or did not make. It's been kind of quiet around the league right now, just as a whole. It feels like the calm before the storm, if you will.
I think it's going to be a tough market. I think it's going to be a seller's market just because there's not that many teams, I think, that are selling and have a lot to sell. Like, what are the Rockies going to trade away, for example?
That's very true.
Like the A's are trash, but I don't think they're going to trade anything away.
I got breaking news, y'all.
What's that?
Drew Beam is signed. $1.097 million. Just a little bit over his slot value.
Yep. Good. National champion Drew Beam right there. Love to see it.
We really do. Holy smokes. And also, like, you talk about big game players, Greg. Yeah, Drew Beam is a big game player on the collegiate level. Yeah. I think he only had like 2 or 3 runs in the collegiate World Series starts or something like that. Like something obscene. Damn. That's a pretty good track record, if you ask me. Thank you for pointing that out, Jeremy. But right now, we're going to go ahead and get to some Royals reviews. I'll go ahead and start off, and then I'll bring in Honey for her review on the evening, and then we'll go to Greg and to Jeremy. Sound good, guys?
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right. I got Greg opened it up talking about Randy Rosarena. I got to talk about Hunter Harvey's mullet. Okay. That is a solid 80 grade mullet for me. Review 5 stars on Yelp. Kudos to his barber. I'm waiting on him to get that Scott Barlow level flow that he had not too long ago with that big old mustache. I don't know what it is about relievers thinking that they have to have a lot of hair, whether it be on the front of the face or the back of the face, but it's
distracting to the hitter,
I guess. But like, I don't know. You're releasing the ball like way away from here. Okay, I guess maybe long hair hides the slot a little bit. I don't know.
Movement to draw the eye.
It's more distracting. It's like when the basketball players wave around the stuff behind the goal on the free throws, right? Is that basically what it is?
All I know is Scott Barlow, I don't know how he ever saw home plate when he was throwing pitches.
Whip around in front of his face.
Yeah.
Shit like that. Yeah. But in all seriousness, I'm hoping the best for Harvey. He got off to a rough start, but hopefully he bounces back sooner rather than later. Honey had to step away for a second. So, Greg, why don't you go and do your review, huh?
Yeah, I just recently finished reading The Last of His Kind, Clayton Kershaw and the Burden of Greatness, which is Andy McCullough, old friend's new novel. It's a biography about Clayton Kershaw, his whole life and career. So you can look kind of behind the curtain at the guy. I mean, I don't even know what to say about him himself. Like, Clayton Kershaw as an individual isn't like the most interesting person, but kind of placed within baseball in the way that
McCullough is a tremendous writer.
Yeah, he really is. Remember that whole Twitter exchange? Who did he have that exchange with, Jeremy? Talking about, like, why didn't you send me a free copy of your book? Was that John Heyman?
That was Heyman, yeah.
Yeah. So
John Heyman's like, I haven't gotten a free copy, but McCullough's really good, so you should read it. Here, I'm adjusting my camera here. Did McCullough actually respond to him? I think Heyman was just being an idiot all on his own.
Oh, I don't think he responded to him, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Heyman
himself.
Yeah, that's just normal behavior from John Heyman. I can't, as informed as those two men are on his podcast, I cannot stand listening to it. because it's just not for me. But anywho, speaking of books, Honey is going to review a book of her own this evening. Honey, over to you.
Hello. What was the name of that book? Never Lie by Frida McFadden. So this past fall, when Jacob was stationed away for school, I joined a book club because all of my friends moved away and left me. And this was last month's book. Yeah. So I wasn't here for the discussion, but we read this psychological thriller by Frida McFadden called Never Lie, and it's phenomenal. And I don't want to give away much, but it's about a psychiatrist who was murdered or went missing, I guess. And this couple that goes to look at her house to buy it. And some weird shit starts happening. So it's really interesting. The one that we're reading this month for book club, I chose because it's really weird, and I wanted everyone else to have to read it with me and then discuss it because it makes no sense. It's called The Hike by Drew McGarry, which is about this man. Quiet! Goodness gracious. About this man who ends up, it's a dark fairy tale in a sense and thriller, and he is like on a business trip, decides to go on a hike before his meeting and gets lost and ends up in this weird ass path.
It is a mind fuck.
Imagine I listened to it as an audiobook before I actually read it. So my experience with this book was listening to it. But yeah, if you're into like weird thrillers and books you cannot predict what's going to happen next, they are both phenomenal. All
righty, thank you very, very much, Honey. Sorry about the dogs. The guys are mowing next door, so you'll have to excuse us. I know. Well, Jeremy, listen, they had to alarm people because you have a review regarding Bobby Witt Jr.'s franchise outlook with the Royals. It's really going to impact Bobby Witt Jr.'s legacy. You know what I mean? Jeremy, over to you for your.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's a joke.
So my review is I'm going to give you 2 reviews for the price of 1. You ready for this? So my first review is CrowdStrike. Do not push an update on a Thursday night, you idiots. Do not do it. Never mind that the place I work for also pushes updates on Thursday nights. It's bad practice. Tuesdays are the days for updates. Come on, get it together. All right, and then the other thing is my place of employment. I'm going to review them and say, yeah, you suck because you were all you can't log on your computer, but find some work to do anyway because looking busy is more important than anything in the whole world. That is a terrible outlook on life. It is a terrible thing that comes from capitalism and the bad kind of capitalism. Like, I'm not really speaking anti-capitalist, but I am anti-stupid capitalism, and that's what that is. Get off.
We are anti-stupidity over here, I will say. All right, guys, any closing thoughts before we get on out of here? Well, we can debate that till we're blue in the face.
I had an interaction with someone on Twitter the other day who was like, can we all be normal today? And I was like, no, I will never be normal. And she's like, by normal, I mean, like, don't hurl racist and misogynistic insults and death threats at me. I'm like, then I can be normal in that way. Yes.
Yeah. When that's the bar for normal, I think we can clear that with a little bit of ease, if you will. All right. We are going to go ahead and get on out of here, get on with our Sunday evening. Greg, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. My name is Jake Milham. He is Jeremy Greco. If you want to follow along with us on social media, our links are down the podcast description below. Also, Greg's article, once again, is going to be down in the description. Yeah, you really do good insight there, Greg. I know that was a lot of legwork there, so thank you for doing that. But once again, thank you for joining us till the end here. And until next time, go Royals!